Welcome back to Summary Central. Today we are diving into a book that is either going to save your brain or make you painfully aware of how much of your life you have been feeding to the internet like it is some hungry digital raccoon digging through your mental garbage. The book is Deep Work by Cal Newport, the guy who basically looked at your distracted life and said you can do better, but also in a scientific way that hurts your feelings. Deep Work is about one thing: your ability to focus without your mind wandering off like a toddler chasing a butterfly. And Cal Newport argues that this skill is becoming incredibly rare and incredibly valuable at the exact same time, which means if you can learn to focus like a monk, you will outperform almost everyone who is still refreshing notifications like it is oxygen. So today we are going deep. Really deep. So deep that your phone might vibrate out of jealousy. And as always, if you enjoy the breakdown, gently smack that subscribe button so the algorithm thinks you are a responsible adult. Chapter 1. The Deep Work Hypothesis. Cal Newport opens with a simple idea that should scare you a little. The ability to do deep work is becoming rare at the exact same moment that it is becoming the single greatest skill for creating value in the modern economy. Translation. Everyone is getting worse at focusing while the world is rewarding the few who can focus like laser cannons mounted on a shark. Deep work is defined as distraction-free concentration that pushes your cognitive abilities to their limits. This is the work that actually creates progress in your life. The book argues that shallow work like checking email or doing repetitive tasks is basically mental potato chips. Easy to consume, gives you nothing, and leaves you wondering why you are still hungry. Deep work is the healthy protein of your career. It actually builds something. One of the biggest points Newport makes is this: if you cannot learn things quickly and produce high-quality work consistently, you are going to get outcompeted. Not because you are not smart, but because you are drowning in notifications and pretending it is normal. He introduces 3 groups who particularly benefit from deep work: high-skill workers who need to constantly master new tools, superstars who produce elite output, owners who use leverage to build systems. If you fall into any of these categories, great. If you fall into all 3, congratulations. You are the main character of this book, whether you wanted that responsibility or not. Chapter 2. The idea of shallow work. Shallow work is the stuff that fills your day and ruins your potential. Newport describes shallow work as tasks that do not require a high level of cognitive intensity. Basically, shallow work is anything you can do while half asleep or while thinking about nachos. Examples include email, meetings that could have been an email, messaging platforms, and random tasks that keep you busy but not productive. The dangerous part is that shallow work feels productive. It tricks your brain into thinking you are doing things because you are moving around and typing and checking boxes. But in reality, you are just doing the cognitive equivalent of sweeping sand on a windy day. You look busy. Nothing changes. The reason shallow work is so destructive is because it steals the time you could be using for deep work. Think of it like leaving your creative energy on the counter overnight. It spoils. And then when you finally sit down to do something meaningful, your brain is like, sorry, we closed 2 hours ago. The book explains attention residue, which is the idea that when you switch tasks, part of your mind stays stuck on the previous task. So even when you think you are multitasking like a productivity wizard, you are actually leaking brain power all over the floor. People who continuously task switch end up performing significantly worse and taking longer to finish anything meaningful. It is not because they are incapable. It is because their mind is constantly being pulled apart. Newport references the cultural shift toward being always connected. And look, the truth is, we have all become dopamine addicts in a society built to enable it. Every time you check your phone, you are basically micro-dosing distraction. The book pushes a bold argument. If you want to be successful now, you cannot just be good. You need to be someone who protects your attention like it is a priceless artifact in a museum guarded by a laser grid and 2 angry security guards. Chapter 4. The value of deep work. Deep work produces the best results because it is the only mental state where your brain is able to perform at its maximum potential. When you are truly focused, you enter what Newport calls a flow state. Not the gentle river kind of flow, more like the kind of flow where your productivity becomes terrifyingly efficient and you wonder why you did not do this sooner. Newport uses real-world examples of highly successful individuals who mastered deep work. People like Carl Jung, who built a literal stone tower in the woods just to think deeply. Or great scientists who would disappear for long stretches of time because they were working on something important rather than checking their phones like the rest of us. The value of deep work comes down to 2 things. You learn faster. You produce world-class output. Most people think success comes from working longer hours. Newport argues the opposite. Success comes from learning how to use a few hours so intensely well that normal people cannot even comprehend how you got so much done. Deep work is the multiplier behind exceptional careers. Chapter 5. The deepest truth about focus. Cal Newport makes a point that is both inspiring and mildly insulting. Your brain actually likes working hard. It wants deep focus. It is built for solving complex problems, creating new ideas, and wrestling with big challenges. But what do most people give it instead? Infinite scrolling and a daily buffet of short-form distractions that basically reduce your mind to a confused hamster on a wheel. Newport's research shows that humans feel more satisfied after periods of focused effort than after effortless relaxation. You know this feeling. It is that rare moment when you finish something meaningful and think, wow, maybe my life is not a disaster after all. The problem is most people never experience that because they treat deep focus like a mythical creature that shows up once a year. Deep work is how you build meaning. Not by accident, not by hoping, but by engaging your mind at full capacity. It is like taking your brain to the gym, except instead of lifting weights, you are lifting your potential. And also sweating a lot less unless your laptop runs really hot. By the way, if you are getting value out of this breakdown, feel free to tap that like button so the YouTube algorithm knows you are one of the chosen few who can still focus for more than 8 seconds. Chapter 6. The 4 disciplines of deep work. This is the part where Newport gets practical and stops politely hinting that your focus is trash. He gives 4 disciplines. Think of them as the 4 horsemen of your productivity apocalypse, but in a good way. Discipline 1. Focus on the wildly important. You cannot do deep work on everything. If you try, you will collapse into a puddle of fried neurons. Newport says you must choose the small set of tasks that actually move the needle. The things that, if completed, would make your life meaningfully better. Identify your wildly important goals and then treat everything else like background noise. Discipline 2. Act on lead measures. Lead measures are things you can control. For deep work, this means hours of focused, high-quality work. People obsess over lag measures like results or achievements, but those come from lead measures. The more deep work hours you put in, the more breakthroughs you get. It is not magic. It is math disguised as discipline. Discipline 3. Keep a compelling scoreboard. Your brain loves visible progress. Newport says to track your deep work hours like they are gold bars. Put a chart on your wall. Make the scoreboard obvious. Humans will do ridiculous things for streaks. This is why fitness apps work. And this is also why missing 1 day of deep work hits your pride harder than it should. Discipline 4. Create a cadence of accountability. Basically, make someone hold you accountable. Could be a friend, could be a coach, could even be your pet if making promises to a golden retriever motivates you. The point is that accountability forces consistency. And consistency is where deep work compounds into something powerful. Chapter 7. Rituals make you dangerous. Most people think they lack discipline. Newport says the truth is simpler. They lack structure. Deep work happens when you build rituals around your focus. You need predictable routines, a consistent starting point, a specific location, a patterned behavior that tells your brain it is time to get serious. Newport explains that willpower is finite, so stop relying on it like it is an eternal battery. Your brain gets tired of making decisions. When you ritualize your deep work, you remove choice from the equation. Less choice means less resistance. Less resistance means more productivity. More productivity means you finally stop asking yourself why your life has felt like running on a treadmill made of broken dreams. Examples of rituals that work. Setting a strict time window for deep work. Working in the same environment every day. Eliminating distractions before you begin. Setting rules for what you will and will not allow during your work block. It is like building a fortress around your attention, except cheaper and with fewer dragons. Chapter 8. Make boredom your superpower. This chapter is one of Newport's greatest hits. He says you need to train your brain to tolerate boredom. Most people treat boredom like a deadly virus. The moment they feel it, they reach for their phone. Newport argues that this habit destroys your ability for deep work. If your brain is constantly stimulated, it forgets how to stay still long enough to think deeply. So here is the uncomfortable truth. If you want to focus like a monk, you must become comfortable being bored. Yes, you heard that right. You must practice boredom. You sit there, you stare, you do nothing, and your brain screams for stimulation like a toddler denied candy. But if you resist, your attention muscles strengthen. Newport uses a brilliant analogy. If you only practice intense focus, but never practice resisting distraction, you are basically training to be a sprinter who refuses to warm up. You build capability, but not control. And without control, your focus collapses the moment something shiny appears. Oh, and while we are here, if this video is helping you upgrade your brain, drop a comment telling me your biggest distraction so far. This is your gentle engagement reminder, number 2. Use it wisely. Chapter 9. Quit social media. Maybe. Probably. Here comes Newport's most controversial take. Social media is designed to steal your attention. Not borrow, steal. He argues that most people use these platforms because they are afraid of missing out. But when they track their time honestly, they discover social media gives them very little value in return. Newport does not say delete everything in a dramatic ceremony like sacrificing your apps to the productivity gods. He says you should evaluate each platform through a simple lens. Does this tool significantly support my values or my goals? If no, cut it. If yes, use it intentionally with strict limits. The book challenges the idea that social media is necessary for success. Newport gives examples of successful professionals who thrive without feeding the algorithm their time and sanity. It is not about being anti-social media. It is about being pro-attention. And your attention deserves better than being constantly pulled into digital chaos. Chapter 10. Drain the shallows. Cal Newport now gets aggressive, like a disappointed teacher who knows you have been spending more time on your phone than on your future. He argues that the only way to protect deep work is to reduce shallow work so drastically that your schedule starts to look like a minimalist art piece. Simple, clean, almost too empty, like an IKEA showroom, but for your brain. Shallow work includes the endless email chains, the pointless meetings, the tasks that feel important because they give you a temporary dopamine pat on the back, but actually accomplish nothing meaningful. Newport says unless you intentionally limit shallow work, it will multiply like gremlins fed after midnight. He recommends scheduling your entire day in time blocks. Not because he wants you to become a productivity robot, but because if you do not assign every minute a purpose, shallow work will slither into the cracks. And once it gets in, it never leaves. Think of shallow work as mold. If you do not control humidity, it spreads. Newport also says that even if your job requires shallow tasks, you should still fence them in. Create designated windows for them and never let them leak into your deep work zones. This is the difference between steering your life and getting dragged behind it. Chapter 11. Schedule everything like you mean it. This part is basically Newport grabbing you by the shoulders and saying, stop winging it. He wants you to schedule deep work with the same seriousness you schedule medical appointments or free food events. You protect it. You fight for it. You say no to things that threaten it. Because if you do not schedule deep work, shallow work wins by default. Newport suggests choosing specific deep work rituals. Same time, same place. No negotiations. Over time, your brain learns that this is focus time and shifts into gear faster. Repetition becomes identity. Identity becomes capability. The scheduling also extends to how you end your day. Newport introduces the shutdown ritual. It is a formal end to work where you review what you accomplished, plan the next day, and then say out loud, shutdown complete. Yes, it feels weird. Yes, it works. Your brain stops worrying about tasks once you tell it that the worrying is over for today. By the way, small engagement cue here. If you have ever tried to shut your brain down and it just kept talking anyway, hit the like button so I know I am not alone out here. Chapter 12. The Grand Gesture. This is one of the most dramatic chapters. Newport argues that sometimes you need to make a grand gesture to kickstart deep work. A big, bold action that signals to your brain this is serious. Examples include renting a cabin for a weekend to finish a project, or booking a hotel room for a day so you can work without distractions. J.K. Rowling famously did this when writing the final Harry Potter book. She locked herself in an expensive hotel because she knew the money would guilt trip her into finishing the manuscript. The idea is that extreme changes in environment can trigger extreme changes in focus. A grand gesture breaks the routine and tells your mind this is not another casual attempt. This is a mission. Chapter 13. Productive meditation. Newport introduces something brilliant called productive meditation. It is where you take a problem you are trying to solve and think about it deeply while doing something physically repetitive like walking or jogging. The movement occupies just enough of your attention to prevent boredom, but not so much that you cannot think deeply. This technique pulls your mind into a creative flow where ideas begin to shape themselves. It is like background processing for your brain, but without overheating your laptop. The more you do it, the better you get at sustaining focus across longer stretches of time. If you try this, just do not pull out your phone every 3 minutes. That defeats the entire purpose and also makes you look like someone accidentally enrolled in an Olympic scrolling competition. Chapter 14. Work like Teddy Roosevelt. Now this is wild. Newport introduces the Roosevelt Dash, inspired by Theodore Roosevelt, whose schedule was so packed you would think he was allergic to free time. Roosevelt worked intensely in short bursts, fully focused, with zero interruptions allowed. The idea behind the Roosevelt Dash is to pick a task and give yourself an aggressively short deadline. Not to stress yourself out, but to create intensity. When the time is scarce, your focus amplifies. Your brain stops wandering because it does not have the luxury. You enter a sharpened mental state where distractions do not stand a chance. Newport insists this works because time pressure forces you into deep work, whether you feel ready or not. It is productivity through psychological trickery. And honestly, it works suspiciously well. Chapter 15. Become hard to reach. This is where Newport becomes your personal boundaries coach. He says that if you want to protect deep work, you must become strategically inconvenient. Not rude, not unprofessional, just not instantly available like a vending machine for responses. People treat responsiveness like a moral virtue. Newport says no. You need to preserve your attention, not donate it. Every interruption costs cognitive switching fees. Every instant reply trains others to expect you to always be on call. That is not a life. That is a digital leash. He suggests setting rules for communication, batching email responses, using autoresponders that set expectations, and declining meetings that have no clear purpose or outcome. Your goal is simple. Make deep work your default mode and everything else the exception. Oh, and before we move on, this is a gentle reminder. If this deep work breakdown is giving you any ideas for rescuing your attention from the chaos of daily life, feel free to subscribe. We are only halfway through, and your brain deserves this upgrade. Chapter 16. The culture of bussy bragging. Newport takes aim at one of the most annoying modern habits ever invented. The busy brag. You know this one. It is when people walk around acting like being overwhelmed makes them important. They say things like, I am swamped, or I have no free time, or I am drowning in emails, as if this is an Olympic sport and they are going for gold. Deep work destroys the need for busy bragging because it gives you actual accomplishments instead of performance theater. Newport argues that many workplaces reward activity instead of value. In other words, if you look busy, people assume you are productive even if you got nothing meaningful done. This creates a culture where we fill our days with shallow work. Because shallow work is visible. It is easy to point at emails and say, look, I worked. Deep work is the opposite. It is invisible. You sit quietly, thinking deeply, creating something that actually matters. You do not look busy. You look like you are daydreaming. But ironically, this is where the real magic happens. Newport pushes the idea that to stand out, you must escape the busy trap and start producing actual results. People who master deep work become rare assets. They generate ideas that others cannot. They learn faster than others. They create output that looks like wizardry. And they do it while working fewer hours, because those hours are high intensity instead of endless distraction loops. Chapter 17. Train your concentration like a muscle. The ability to focus is not a personality trait. It is a trained skill. Newport compares it to physical conditioning. If you go to the gym once a month and then complain that your muscles do not grow, people will look at you like you are confused about how biology works. The same applies to concentration. If your attention span is 3 seconds long, it is not because you are broken. It is because you have been conditioning your mind to expect constant stimulation. Every time you grab your phone because you feel even slightly bored, you reinforce distraction. Newport says you must train the opposite. Practice resisting impulses. Practice doing nothing. Practice staying with one thought longer than your brain wants to. Over time, your concentration becomes stronger. This is why Newport recommends scheduled deep work sessions, productive meditation, and strict time blocking. You are building endurance. And like any training, it feels uncomfortable at first. That discomfort is not failure. It is strength building. Chapter 18. The value of a shutdown ritual. We touched on this earlier, but it deserves its own chapter because Newport is basically saying your workday needs a proper ending, not you dropping your laptop at the exact moment you mentally implode. A real ending. The shutdown ritual has 3 purposes. It reduces anxiety because your brain knows everything is accounted for. It improves sleep because your mind does not keep replaying tomorrow's tasks. It makes the next day more productive because you already have clarity. The ritual is simple. Review your tasks, update your plan for tomorrow, close all open loops, then say shutdown complete. The phrase matters. It signals to your brain that the workday is officially done. This is how you stop your thoughts from jumping out of the bushes at night like surprise productivity ninjas whispering things you forgot to do. Chapter 19. Deciding what is essential. Newport emphasizes that deep work requires ruthless prioritization. You cannot give your best cognitive energy to everything. You must decide what actually matters. Otherwise, your time becomes a buffet of random tasks and shallow obligations. He suggests asking one powerful question. What would happen if I did not do this? If the answer is nothing meaningful, cut it. If the answer is mild inconvenience, cut it. If the answer is catastrophic collapse of your career, maybe keep that one. But here's the twist. Most things feel urgent but are not important. And most important things do not scream for attention. They sit quietly in the background, waiting for you to stop doom scrolling long enough to notice them. Deep work is how you give those things the priority they deserve. Tiny engagement cue here. If you have ever looked at your to-do list and realized 60% of it is nonsense, consider liking this video so the gods of productivity may bless you with cleaner lists. Chapter 20. The lazy approach to productivity. Newport introduces a paradox. To do deep work effectively, you must also do nothing sometimes. Not scroll, not binge, not multitask. Actually nothing. Because idleness is not wasted time. It is recovery time. You cannot work intensely if your brain is constantly fried. He gives examples of famous thinkers who regularly took long walks, naps, or quiet breaks, not because they were lazy, but because they understood that the brain needs downtime to consolidate ideas and restore focus. Deep work consumes cognitive energy. Rest replenishes it. Newport suggests ending your workday early when possible, leaving buffers between intense tasks, limiting after-hours engagement, not checking email while brushing your teeth, giving your brain actual space. When you allow yourself to rest, your deep work becomes more powerful, and you stop living in a constant state of simmering exhaustion that you pretend is normal. Chapter 21. Make your work meaningful. Deep work is not just about being productive. It is about building a life that feels purposeful. Newport argues that people who engage in deep work consistently report higher fulfillment. They feel more connected to their craft, more proud of what they create, more confident in their abilities. This happens because deep work taps into our desire for mastery. Humans love getting better at things, but mastery requires sustained attention. You cannot master anything while being dragged through 10,000 distractions a day. Meaning comes from challenge, from growth, from pushing your cognitive limits. Deep work is a portal to all of that. So if you ever feel like your days blend into one long blur, deep work might be your way out. It gives structure, purpose, direction. And honestly, in a world where people lose focus midway through brushing their teeth, this is a superpower. Chapter 22. Craft a life that supports deep work. Newport closes in a surprisingly philosophical way. He argues that deep work is not a productivity hack. It is a lifestyle. It is a commitment to living intentionally instead of being pulled around by digital chaos, like a confused marionette with too many strings. A deep work life means you design your environment to support focus. You cut the noise. You create routines. You protect your time. You build habits that reinforce clarity instead of clutter. You stop letting your attention be auctioned off to the highest bidding notification. Most people build their life around convenience. Newport says build your life around intention. Convenience creates distraction. Intention creates depth. And depth is where the meaningful parts of your life come from. Chapter 23. The compounding effect of focus. One of Newport's biggest promises is that deep work compounds. Not in a gentle way, in a terrifyingly powerful way. If you do 1 hour of deep work today, nothing dramatic happens. But if you do 1 hour every day for a year, you will lap the version of you who kept multitasking like a caffeinated squirrel. Think about what happens when you apply deep work consistently. You learn faster than others. You produce higher quality work. Your ideas become sharper. Your execution becomes smoother. Your results start to look unfair. The people around you will assume you suddenly became gifted or disciplined or genetically modified. But really, you just stopped letting tiny digital distractions eat your brain for breakfast. Chapter 24. The moral argument for focus. This chapter might surprise you. Newport argues that doing deep work is not just beneficial, it is moral. Because when you focus deeply, you bring the best of your mind into the world. You create things that matter. You contribute meaningfully instead of reacting endlessly. He frames distraction as a kind of self-betrayal. Your attention is the most precious thing you own. When you give it away carelessly, you are sacrificing potential that will never return. Deep work is how you honor that potential. And honestly, the world needs people who think deeply, people who create instead of consume, people who bring clarity instead of noise. Deep work is not just productive. It is good for you and good for everyone who benefits from what you create. Final lessons. Here are the big takeaways Newport wants tattooed onto your brain. 1. Deep work is rare but overwhelmingly valuable. 2. Shallow work is seductive but creatively useless. 3. Focus is a skill that must be trained intentionally. 4. Structure beats willpower every time. 5. Rest is mandatory for high performance. 6. A distracted life is a diminished life. 7. A focused life is a meaningful life. If you build your days around deep work, your life will change. Not instantly, but undeniably. It is the closest thing to a superpower that normal humans get. That wraps up Deep Work by Cal Newport. If this summary made you laugh, think, or question how many brain cells your phone has stolen from you this year, feel free to like the video so the YouTube algorithm treats you like the productive legend you are becoming. And if you want more book breakdowns delivered with humor, clarity, and just enough existential panic to motivate you, subscribe to Summary Central. We have a 15-minute version and a 5-minute version of Deep Work coming up, so stick around for those too. Now go protect your attention like it is priceless, because it is, and practice some deep work today. Your future self is already standing up and clapping.